funny. I just picked up the gavel and people quieted down. I needed this at home when I had 4 daughters there. I'd like to call the meeting to order 7 o'clock on January 9th for the Stonington Board of Education. Could we have Allie lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please? And communications and recognitions. You look like you have something, Jack?
I do. SEF will be having their Stonington Education celebration, their annual event, on March 21st at Latitude 41. I believe it starts at 7 o'clock. And we're hoping to have more people than last year, so please, everybody, come. It's going to be a lot of fun. So hope to see you there.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay.
Happy New Year. I wanted to, I have something to read that has my recognition in it. Is that all right? Okay. So can you hear me? Yeah, thanks. Okay. So it's been a crazy couple of weeks. I turned 50, learned that I have breast cancer, and then had my name appear in another confusing and disparaging article published by The Day. In fact, it was so confusing that on Monday, when my own superintendent stopped by my office to lend her support for my diagnosis and treatment, she had also done her own research on the role of board members as mandated reporters. She learned that board members are not mandated reporters, but I also clarified that when I passed my concerns along to administrators in 2016, I did so in the role of a parent who had overheard a conversation between my daughter and other students in the car. I made my referral as a parent out of concern that students would not follow up on their own, roughly 6 months before I was appointed to the board and 2 years before I was even hired for my current position. The superintendent was only following up in case one of her own board members learned of the dark cloud over my head and was questioned about the capacity in which I had made my referral, without also filing a separate DCF report. I had considered that at the time, but did not feel it was warranted. I bring this up so that everyone can see the glamorous life of an elected official, a person with a doctorate in education who believed that serving on a board of ed would be the ultimate contribution to her own community, given the background, my experience in and out of schools. I've made many missteps in learning about my role as a board member, but failing to report things or hold people accountable for intentionally irresponsible behavior is not one of them. I stand with Stonington students and with Stonington schools. Another article from The Day this week almost got the better of me, and I had planned to take this meeting off as a mental health absence. Oh, I have a little note here. For the 3 students that are here, I would like you to look around the room, and I want you to take into account the caliber and dedication of the administrative team that is in front of you, because it has never been higher in the history of Stonington schools, starting with Dr. Riley and Mr. Fries. So last night, my triplets were discussing their school day. One was thrilled that his mouse cart or trap, I don't know what the heck it was, had gone the required distance for physics. Another was commenting on all the excitement about the new furnishings in the senior lounge. It was maybe more of a respite than excitement, as several students have been spotted comfortably napping on the new sofas. The third one mentioned that in her home base yesterday, when Ms. Lacombe realized the new coffee table also doubles as a foosball table, she asked if she should get one for her own room and students. This is a teacher who has hung monogrammed stockings for her home-based students each year and filled them with gift cards and treats. A woman who is bringing in a new microwave today that is apparently red and Lily thinks might be very upgrade, or she. And someone who has let her students know in every way possible that they are her extended family. I came tonight to thank Ms. Lacombe for exemplifying the spirit of truly caring for kids at Stonington High School and for the students that are here tonight, because I believe in you and your school, and I will do everything in my power to ensure that it continues to move forward in ways that put students first. I also came to model desired behavior for you. I hope that one day when you are inevitably faced with a challenge and feel like giving up, and here I'm referring to the personal and professional integrity that has been called into question through this process of the board, the day, you will remember that a 50-year-old woman showed up for you, and it will give you the last bit of willpower you need to continue showing up for something or someone that you believe in. Finally, I know that you are being educated to be critical thinkers in an ever-changing world. And I ask that you think about the things I've said tonight and consider which part, if any, will be published in the next article by the day. Thank you.
I did have some comments and recognitions, but I'm not sure they will compare to Candace's current statement. I did want to say congratulations to West Vine students who participated in the recent spelling bee, and congratulations to Eliza Dufour for winning that and will be representing us at the state level. Congratulations to the boys soccer team on the championship on and off the field. 3.71 and a championship is nothing to scoff at. Congratulations to them. Congratulations to Mr. Freeze and your entire staff and students for the NEASC accreditation. And I think at this point, that's it at this moment. Thank you.
A couple things. I would like to congratulate Principal Alicia Daw for getting through being the pronunciator at the spelling bee. She was nervous but did an outstanding job. That was really fun to watch those students. I'd also like to congratulate Tim Smith in the middle school for being accepted into the New England League of Middle Schools conference convention coming up in March as presenters for our wonderful Encore program. So congratulations, Mr. Smith and Stonington Middle School. That's really something.
And I do, if Mrs. Daw and Mr. Freeze, I do have little notes for Ms. Dufour and for the boys soccer team. Thank you. Any other comments or, I'm sorry, communications and recognitions? And can now have comments from citizens. Sure. You can go up to the podium and just make sure you speak into the microphone because it's recorded.
So my name is Martin Burnett, and I was a graduate member of the 2019 class of Stonington High School. And before I talk about what I want to talk about, I just want to inform everyone that I'm coming to you as the child of a parent, two parents who have been public school teachers in the Groton school system for 25 to 30 years, so I'm well aware of the dedication that teachers and administrators put forth when it comes to their students. But I would like to talk about the issues revolving Mr. Chokas, and I was not surprised by the allegations against Mr. Chokas that were made public this July. During my 4 years at Stonington High School, although I never heard any direct accusations made against Mr. Chokas and never interacted with him, I always heard different rumors about his behavior towards girls. It was an open secret, and there were many students aware of how he acted. Despite most students knowing something was up with Chokas, It was never considered a genuine problem. I cannot speak as to why others felt this way, but part of me felt as if these allegations were to be true, they would have been reported and Chokus would no longer be employed. Another part of me believed I would have heard directly about these incidents from any of the girls in the school who were subjected to his behaviors. And overall, I went through the 4 years of high school unconcerned about what turned out to be a very real issue. And after not hearing of any specific incidents throughout these 4 years, it was surprising to hear about how many girls had actually come forward with reports. I brought this up with some of my female classmates that I had graduated with and found out that there were many more girls who had similar interactions but never actually reported them. They told me that girls did not feel comfortable talking about what happened when it came to sexual misconduct, not just in this issue, but in general, because they felt a lack of support from particularly the male student body. Instead of receiving support, they told me that they felt like they would be blamed maybe for what had happened to them. They felt if they were to come forward with their experiences, they would be dismissed and not be taken seriously by the boards at school. They felt defeated and that there was no use bringing what happened to light. It never seemed to be a prevalent issue because girls seldom talked about it or made any public accusations. If a girl did make an accusation against a male student, there usually was an assumption that they might just be lying or that it just was not that serious. It all contributed to an environment that made girls feel incredibly uncomfortable in coming out with their own stories of sexual misconduct and allowed for this vicious cycle to continue. The reason I bring this up is because I feel that the way the Chokus allegations have been handled and treated by the Stonington school system as a whole is an embodiment of the lack of support given to women when it comes to inappropriate sexual behaviors. The school system is asked that it be judged on their history of student-centered practices and outcomes, but at the end of the day did not support those young women who made a stand against Chokus over the last decade and a half. The administration, by allowing for this to continue as long as it did, has sent a message to its students that these actions are okay. Now, if the administration does not support these girls, there should be no confusion over why the male students do not either. I ask that the board supports an independent investigation over teacher misconduct when it comes particularly to this issue. That these girls who were let down by the administration, by their peers, and by myself are not let down again. It does not matter if these girls brought forward what were considered either concerns or official complaints. What matters is that the school was aware of Mr. Chokus's behavior towards girls for more than a decade. That those in power that were tasked with protecting their students failed to do just that, and I believe should be held responsible for the allowance and acceptance of such behavior over the course of more than 15 years. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Burnett.
Good evening. My name is Jessica Morrissey. I'm from Stonington Village. To say that I'm very concerned about the Board of Education and the way they have handled Alyssa Morrison's standing up for the students, I just want you to take in consideration that not everybody's going to follow the leader. They're going to express their own opinions, and that the protection of our children is foremost. Complaints, concerns, semantics. It's public knowledge through the day, all the things that have transpired, and I'm sure you all have even more information. I'm just asking you to be respectful of every member of the Board of Education in protecting our children. I support Alyssa, Jack, and Heidi. I hope you can find a common ground to move forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Morrissey.
Good evening. I'm Faith Leitner. Number one is I wanted to read, just for the minutes, part of the editorial that was in this past week. We did have one article, and we had one editorial. I honestly thought that 2020 was going to get better. I thought that maybe we were going to have good news. But I have some things highlighted, and then I have a few comments. Stonington School Board member Elisa Morrison tried to do the right thing. For years, female high school students had complained to administration officials about what they considered invasive and inappropriate touching by a male teacher and coach, yet the teacher long remained in place. The best way to get at the facts, to assess whether administrators had failed in their duties to protect students, to determine if lessons needed to be learned and policies changed, she concluded was to have a fully independent investigation. An elected official, Morrison shared her thoughts and concerns with day writer Joe Wojcicki. This is how things work in a democracy. An idea is put before policymakers and the public to succeed or fail. This is what we know further down. As far back as 2004, girls had complained that former high school teacher and coach Tim Chokas had inappropriately touched them, making them uncomfortable. Administrators responded with a series of communications to try to get Chokas to alter his behavior, yet the teacher remained in place and the conduct continued. Finally, after a January 2019 incident in which a student reported to a police officer assigned to the high school about Chokas touching a classmate, did the administration take steps to remove him. The administration allowed Chokas to resign and provided him with full salary and benefits through the end of the year. School officials agreed not to raise red flags with other school systems where Chokas might apply, agreeing to only disclose information required by law. As concerning was learning, again through the power of an FOI request, that none of the complaints filed by numerous female students over the years had found their way into his personal record. Okay. First, before I forget, I am a previous board member, and I know how tough this job is. It's a thankless job. It takes hours and hours of work, and I applaud all of you for taking on this job. Candace, I am extremely sorry to hear of all the challenges that you are going to be facing this year, but I have to, again, refer to my notes. This is my 4th meeting where I have come up to the mic. I don't like it. I get nervous. I hate this because it's awkward, and this is something we shouldn't be talking about. The first time that I came up was August 8th, and I had told you guys that 30 girls have come forward. 30 girls have come forward to say that they were inappropriately touched, and even if it was 2 girls, this is mind-blowing, absolutely mind-blowing. The second and the third time that I had come up to the mic, I was urging you to come to a vote to get a private investigation. You had wanted to wait until Mrs. Egan had finished her report. And now this is the 4th time that I've come. We are now at January 9th, and my reaction is I'm just angry. Because in the time that Mr. Chokas almost has been gone for a year, but in the time that has passed, silence is deafening. That administration can't even say how horrible this is. That these girls deserve, and I'm sorry, I do a lot of mistakes, but we as parents teach our children that if you mess up or if you do something really wrong, you try not to do it again and you say you're sorry. But I don't know if it's lawyers that are preventing, are preventing anybody from saying anything, but that no talking is not getting anywhere. I again urge you to conduct a private investigation. Mrs. Egan has started since August. It's now January, and in the time that Mrs. Egan was doing her interviews, we could have had already a private investigation done. I want to thank Elisa for coming forward and pushing through to ask for a personal or a private investigation. I want to thank Heidi for encouraging us to hold a workshop to talk about this issue, sexual harassment. And I want to thank Jack for asking the questions, where, when, and how did this all happen? So I know it's a tough job. I've done it. But you guys have to come together, and if it takes winter retreats, or if you can consider the private investigation again. But I don't think this subject is going to go away. Thank you for your time.
I'm Tracy Swain. I do not have children in the school system any longer. I pulled them out years ago to protect them for things like this. But to have this in the newspaper so many times, who is protecting the kids? The Board of Education members are supposed to protect the kids. The union protects the employees. Where's the divide? All I see from everything in the newspaper is that you're protecting the employees. Stop protecting them. Do an investigation. For a student who graduated last year, who during the summer called a bunch of friends and said, hey, I knew rumors, but for him to hear, oh yeah, there was more than the little back talk that he was hearing. I have personally spoken to 14 girls who have graduated. And the stuff I know from those 14 girls would blow your minds. I'm not saying it, but I will say this. For a woman to stand up and say an accused person did such and such to them is very hard for any woman in today's day and age. Sadly, even in 2020. So for Alyssa, thank you. From my heart, thank you for standing up for the girls in the school. Heidi, thank you for supporting that. Thank you for asking for the investigation. And Jack, same thing. Thank you for asking the who, what, where, and when. Because enough is enough. Do an investigation. Because in the meeting in August that I attended, that I did not speak at, you said, oh, we should have the report by September. Well, guess what? September is come and gone. Get an investigation and get it done. Because I'm tired of hearing this. Protect.
Hi, my name is Elizabeth Johnstone. And the first thing is I want to thank every single board member for your service to our children, to our community. I know it's a lot of work each of you do, and I really appreciate it. I am here this evening to support an independent investigation of the complaints, that were complaints for the abuse of the teachers. And, I too, this is very uncomfortable for me to be up here. I know some of the people on the board and have great respect for them, but I'm really trying to be, and also thank you, I didn't remember your name, but that was incredibly brave of you and amazing modeling for all of us to stand up for your peers. So thank you. So that's just why I'm here tonight. For everybody's sake in this town, we need an independent investigation. So please, for those of you that aren't on the same side as Elisa, Heidi, and Jack, please, for all of us, we need closure. We need to heal. It's too many, it's too long, it's 2004. It's very hard for a lot of these young women to come forward. Look around you, their friend is speaking for them. You know, like, we need to be their voice, and if there is nothing there, then it will clear it all up. But with not having it, I have talked to so many people who couldn't be here tonight that are so upset over this issue. People who have children in the school system, people who don't. We need an independent investigation, period. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, everyone who got up and spoke and presented your comments tonight. I would also appreciate that perhaps you stay until agenda item 10 when we talk about, or 11 when we talk about the workshop that will be happening. And if you can't stay then, I hope you do show up for the workshop on January 27th, on Monday at 7 o'clock, where a lot of these issues and comments that you've brought up will start to be discussed and then worked on how we'll go forward and working together with our community. So I hope to see you then. Our meeting continues. I'm not sure what you're asking. Comments from citizens is over, yes. We're now moving on to the consent agenda. Next item on the agenda is the consent agenda. On the consent agenda, we do have a change to the minutes, an addition to the minutes. But I do have those, so we can approve those and state that they will be accepted as amended. Heidi added 2 comments to be added to her statement. She commended the hiring of Attorney Egan from the Office of Child Advocate as an important remediation step. She hoped that the board could give current and former students allegedly impacted by sexual harassment an opportunity to express their concerns and complaints to a private investigator. That was Heidi's comments that will be added to the minutes. Right. Yes. Right. It was to complete the minutes, yes. So do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda with the addition of the items presented?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion is approved. Next, we have the first read of the curriculum, grade 6 ELA, Algebra 2, and then the Encore classes. Do we have any questions currently for anyone present? And if not, we can move that to next agenda for a second read. If you have any questions in between, please let Dr. Riley or Mrs. Butler know. Next, we have the second read for curriculum, K through 5 digital literacy, grades K1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and Encore classes listed below. That is a second read. If there's no issues with any of those, we would need a motion to approve.
So moved.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any nays? All approve. Motion passes. Next, we have the Stonington Middle School Final Plans Project Manual estimates for roof replacement project.
Yes, prior to this meeting, the building committee, the district's new building committee for this particular item for the middle school roof met and approved the plans and the estimates. This is necessary for us to go to the state for partial reimbursement of the project. And I believe Mr. Esposito has a motion for this.
Now I have a microphone, I hope. The motion is dated January 9, 2020. Move that the final plans and project manuals for the Stonington Middle School roof replacement project as prepared for bidding and dated January 6, 2020, and the professional cost estimate complete in accordance with Level 3 of the American Society for Testing and Materials, ASTM, standard number E1557, classification of building elements and related site work, Uniformat 2, for the Stonington Middle School roof replacement project, dated January 6, 2020, have been reviewed and approved for this site on the dates shown above, January 9th, 2020. Second the motion?
We have a first and a second. Any discussion on the item? Do we have all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Next is the report of the Superintendent of Schools.
I have two calendar items, not for action tonight, but I wanted to bring to your attention. For the current calendar year, we were just notified that the Board of Elections needs to use Deans Mill School on April 28th for the primary election. We do not want to have the public walking around the school. When we did this in the past, there were some issues. So our suggestion that'll come back to you at the February meeting will be to exchange the March 13th Professional Development Day with April 28th, which is a regular school day for all schools. So students would attend on March 13th, and we would have a professional development no school day on April 28th, which is the election day. So any questions about that? Okay, we'll bringing that back for action next time. I have...
Do we need to vote on that now?
No.
Okay.
I'm passing out the calendar for next year, the proposed calendar. There's the calendar that has been run by our leadership team. The second page is the Learn Regional calendar. You can see we tried to match as much as we could. While we have administration and myself, I believe we would try to have schools start after Labor Day. Labor Day is very late this year, and if we did that, we played around with some sample calendars and it put us way to the end of June, which we don't think is appropriate. So for this, at least for this coming year, we're suggesting that we start on August 31st, the week before Labor Day, and you can see how the calendar goes. The other change is in December. December 23rd, we had originally as a short day, a minimum day before the 24th. We decided let's make that a non-school day, basically part of the winter break for everyone. We also added in February, made that a 4-day weekend. The spring break coincides with the regional calendar with other local districts and the Learn calendar. And that puts us out into the middle of June rather than the end of June because we're starting a little bit earlier. You can see here we'd have an early release on the 15th. We would have graduation on the 18th, Friday the 18th. That date would be set. And we have a couple snow days, snow makeup days if we need them. This would be our suggested calendar. There's no action on this tonight, but I welcome any comments between now and the February board meeting where we'll bring this for your approval.
I'm sorry, I'm just putting on my sweater. I'm a little chilly. So any comments or questions in between now and February meeting, please let Dr. Riley know. Wow, short but sweet. Now on to item 10, the 2020-21, wow, that sounds strange, budget and staffing and state of the district, part 4.
In front of you, you have a packet that we put together over the past several months related to the budget with some comments about staffing. The schedule for this, as you know, we bring this initially to the board, the first meeting in January. We also have 2 other dates available, January 23rd and February 6th, as follow-up special meetings to consider the budget, ask questions, etc. Tonight, you're certainly welcome to ask any questions or ask for further information. Also, between now and the 23rd, if you think of things as you're looking through this packet, please send me, call me, or email any questions you have so we can do the research for any, bringing all the information that you need for the 23rd. And we'll do that again for February 6th if necessary. This is also going to be part of the State of the District, Part 4. That was for the budget and staffing. We will be using this budget presentation that will go online as part of our 4th entry into the State of the District. I'd like to spend a little while going through the narrative, and then Gary will go through the spreadsheet with the line-by-line items. So starting on page 1, if we go to the philosophy, I just want to remind the board that we present a budget that meets the needs of the district. We try to be very conservative. And that second line, there is no specific target percentage. We do try to be as conservative as possible and meet the educational needs of the children in our community. The budget format is the same as it's been. This is my 8th budget, and I met in October or November of 2012 with Glenn Frischman and Sandy Grimes, and also talked with our board back then about the format. We changed the format to include each department, each line by line for each school. So there's a lot of detail. We're trying to be as open as possible with the format for the budget. As far as the historical perspective, you know this current year was unique in that we're dealing with several major impacts, including the consolidation of the middle school, the return of the 5th grades and the pre-K programs back to the elementary sites. Moving on to page 2, we've closed and turned 2 buildings back to the town. I understand that there's a proposal for West Broad Street School to be leased out for $300 a month. I heard there are several people that would like that for their second home, but that's not our decision. Looking under major challenges, those are the same as they've been in the past. There are some new specific local challenges. The district prioritized needs and expenditures. That's really important for the board to know. We don't just put in everything that we would like to have. We prioritize things and try to keep the proposal to a minimum, the minimum that does meet the educational needs of our children. We have implemented several new programs in our schools, including the alternative education program, the Annex, that we'll hear more about tonight, and we'll also have a presentation by Allison in February. We also have been working on equity between the schools. With the consolidation of the middle school, we now have equity at the middle school level. We also are constantly working to make sure we have equity between our 2 elementary schools. Moving on to page 3, this is a new section. I want to emphasize the enrollment impact on the program, staffing, and the budget. The district has experienced declining enrollment for the past several years and will continue to have a slight decline for the next few years. We've now reached a point where further staff reductions will have a negative impact on programs, particularly at the middle and high school levels. For example, the number of classroom teachers at Stonington High School has decreased by 3.5 teachers between 2015 and 18 due to the enrollment decline of approximately 75 students. Further staff reductions would have a negative effect also at the elementary schools. This budget supports equity of programs at both Deans Mill and West Vine Street schools, so every child in the district has the same educational opportunities and the same supports. If you think about this, we have fewer students at West Vine Street School. Either we allow students to have program equity, the same types of instruction, the same types of supports, or we have class size equity. If we have class size equity, we have fewer teachers, fewer support staff at West Vine. And we have been working since I've been here to have program equity, and we do have that. We've had that this year, and we have that next year. Lastly, if we look at impact on programs, this last paragraph here, if you look at how we've staffed things, the middle and high school music and art programs are the areas where we would probably look to lower the number of teachers. I don't want to do that. I don't see any board member that would want to do that. But that's the kind of hard decision we'll need to make if we need to reduce staffing. The next section is these 5 identified areas of need. I've shared these with the board. I was concerned that there would be additional costs to solve some of these questions and some of these issues. But I'm pleased to say, and I'll go through these very briefly, we are able to work with all these without any impact or very little impact to the general fund. We will be moving to the maintenance custodial supervisor within the next few weeks. We'll be collapsing a current maintenance position and converting that to a maintenance custodial supervisor position at an annual cost of approximately $10,000 more than the position. However, we have 4 pending retirements in the custodial ranks that will more than cover the additional cost. So we'll be able to accomplish this, give Peter the needed assistance that he has requested for maintenance and custodial services. Centralized registration, this is something that the principals have been asking for a number of years. We'll be able to work with that. Chris and his tech staff will be setting up centralized registration, so when we have a new parent, a new family move into town, they'll be able to come to the central office and register there. So we'll have consistency with that whole process, excuse me. We have questions and issues about compliance, climate policy review, including Title IX, the new climate safety compliance and reporting board policies, etc. And we will be implementing some programs within either our title money and, as you'll see, within our current staffing to address those. Moving on to page 4, the annex support with the implementation and expected expansion of the annex. Administrative support is needed. The assistant principal of guidance from the high school will assume some administrative responsibilities for the annex. And that will also include assistance with the Title IX issues to help Allison out in those 2 important areas. Lastly, we have human resources, hiring and processing. We will work within our current staff to come up with checklists and better processes to make sure that we have all those areas covered. So in summary, the 5 stated areas of need and concerns will all be addressed within the current staffing with no additional staff or budget increases to the general fund. And we're very pleased with that. Now, strategies for keeping costs down. You've seen some of these in the past, but there are some new ones. Number 1, we have returned 2 properties to the town. That will certainly help. Number 2, this is important, when there's an unexpected expense mid-year, we have always looked to reprioritizing expenses within our own budget before going to the Board of Finance for additional funds. And we're very proud of that. We've been able to solve the problems internally by not filling positions or not purchasing needed things, etc. We have attempted to regionalize programs and will continue to do that. We're meeting tomorrow with the representative from Learn to talk about that and some other things. We've made every attempt to keep utility costs down, and Peter's presentation a couple meetings ago about the new LED light program, we're moving forward with that, and that will certainly save us utility costs in the future. And I did mention that in the past couple years we've taken actions related to employee benefits that provides quality insurance coverage while reducing costs. Moving on to page 5. Number 6 there at the top. Last year we offered a retirement incentive that certainly helped us. That was the first ever for this district, and we're very proud of 13 teachers who took that advantage of that. And then we have the creation I mentioned of the annex that allows us to provide educational services for students outside of the regular school setting in lieu of outplacements. Our plan is to expand this program in 2020 and beyond, and again Allison will be making a special presentation in February about the annex and the future of the annex. The proposed budget increase for 2020-21 is 3.48%. That's a little higher than it's been in the past few years, but that does cover what we need for our students. As far as staffing goes, and Gary will get into this a little bit, we have reduced the dean position at the middle school, and the only new position is adding a part-time para hall monitor slash supervision person at the middle school. I would like to point out also that the average budget increase for the past 3 years is 2.04%. And that 2% seems to be a target for us and the Board of Finance in the town. So we are, even with the 3.48 that's a little bit higher, we would keep the average over the last 3 years at that basically the 2%. We were asked by the board what's the district's share of the total town budget, and you'll see that our percentage continues to decrease over the past 5 years. We thought that was interesting, an interesting graph there to show you where we are relative to both the district and the town, the total budget that's passed. Page 6, just some staffing and program summaries. I've mentioned a few of these, but Stonington High School, the teacher staffing remains the same, and the assistant principal for guidance will assume some administrative responsibilities. As the enrollment goes down, her caseload will be divided with the other counselors at the high school. The alternative education program, I'll go down to item C there. It is projected that any increased staffing costs would be supported by the reduced need for non-public school tuition. In other words, we're not going to be coming back to the board or the Board of Finance asking for additional funds to expand this. We'll save the money by bringing students back from outplacements. And number 2 there is important for you to know 3 of the current students, I think we have 7 or 8 students right now, 3 of those students enrolled in the annex would be otherwise in a non-public school setting at a total cost of approximately $198,000. So that, what would have gone to tuition now goes to our own teaching and other support staff for that program. Stonington Middle School maintains their current 23 FTE core teaching staffing. I would like to point out that Mary Ann and her funds will support the musical instruments and musical instrument repairs. We put tens of thousands of dollars into this for the current year, and we will continue to support them. They did not have that support in the past. Number 4 there, we're eliminating the 1.0 FTE dean position, and we are reducing a 0.6 counselor position, and you'll see how that we're actually moving that person to an elementary position. At the elementary schools, we have added a few hours of library para hours at Dean's Mill for equity purposes. Their library para was at 29 hours, where at West Vine it was 32 and a half. So we were able to make those equal. We'll continue with the extracurricular stipends for each elementary school. Then on to page 7. The number 5 there is the important thing. The social worker will be from 0.5 from Dean's Mill moving to West Vine. Right now it's a split, 0.5 at each elementary school, and that partial counselor from the middle school will go to Dean's Mill to help with their needs. Mary Ann has listed the major parts of the Title I, Title II, and Title IV programs for your information. And then at the end, I would like to just point out that the non-public school placements, these are some questions that came from the board in the past few months. We have 27 non-public school placements. Of those 27, 4 are placed by DCF. They're the ones that place it. We end up paying for it. Of those 27, 8 are in specialized transition programs for students ages 18 to 21 years old. And you'll hear in February that that's one of the things Allison is looking at, expanding the annex to help with those particular age students. The total projected non-public school enrollment right now for next year is 23. Then there were some questions about magnet school enrollment. It stays fairly steady at around 80. Next year, right now, we're looking at 84, but that kind of goes up and down. We also usually, after school starts, some new students who have gone to these realize that they're missing out and come back. So 2018 we had 79, 2019 we had 81, and we're projected 84, but that'll probably go down. So that's our proposal tonight. We would welcome any requests for information or questions, or you can take a look at this. There's a lot of information, and you can get back to us in the next few weeks. But as you're thinking about that, I'd like to turn it over to Gary to go through the spreadsheet documents.
Sure. So I could look and figure it out, but is the high school have more students than the middle school? And the reason I ask is we'll still have 3 administrators at the middle school, correct?
Correct.
And we only have 2 at the high school. So why would we have 3?
We have 1 principal and 2 assistant principals at the high school, and 1 principal and 2 assistant principals at the middle school.
We do have that many at the high school?
Yeah. If you recall last year when we were looking at the consolidation, I made this statement several times that we were, I don't want to say overstaffing, but we were healthy with our staffing at the middle school because we wanted a smooth transition. And the promise last year was we would remove the dean position at the end of the year, which we're doing. And I think we need to talk about the assistant. We have 2 assistant principals. My recommendation is to keep those for this coming year and consider reduction of those in the following year. That way we're gradually moving along, and we've had great success, as you know, this year with the transition, and I'd hate to kind of jump a little bit too far. But right now, my thinking anyway, and certainly with the administrative team, with the reduction of the dean and the half a counselor, if we could keep the assistant principal, both assistant principals 1 more year, and then consider that for the future.
Okay, yeah, it just seems like that's a lot of administration for 1 building. That's just my opinion.
So what you see up on the screen is on your page 8 and 9. So I've blown it up a little bit this year for you to see, so it's a little bit more legible. It's really just the 2021 proposed budget, but it's exactly as you see on pages 8 and 9. It's really just going to be a summary on my part. It's not going to be a lot of detail, but we're just, for the most part, I'm just going to highlight some of the increases or decreases that you see on the screen. So the first one is administrative salaries. This reflects the costs from the Administrators Association contract and other general administration contracts as well. So that's what that represents. The teacher salaries of just over $574,000. Again, this is according to the brand new teacher's contract for the upcoming year. And what also is in here, in addition to just the regular salaries, are coordinator salaries, extra days for guidance, as well as longevity payments. So that's the reason that is that high. In addition, during the current year, teachers were hired 2 or 3 or 4 steps above. We usually budget at a master's plus 2 or 3. This year, there was more than just a few teachers hired at the 4th, 5th, and 6th step, so that would increase the upcoming costs as well. Secretarial salaries, as you can see, is approximately 2.87%, just over $28,000. What has been done for the upcoming year, there used to be overtime included in that. That has now been placed under general OT for secretaries. Later on, as you go down to line number 12, you can see it there. Maintenance custodial salaries, again, that'll be based upon the custodial maintenance contract, and there will be, as Dr. Riley said, one less maintenance position, but we're adding a maintenance custodian supervisor, so there is no increase in the number of positions there. As you can see, the increase is to a minimum right now for that. Nursing salaries is almost about the same. We had a retirement this year, and so with the new people coming on, it almost broke even for the upcoming year. Paraprofessionals, this is a larger increase because, as I say every month in my report to the board, we have to hire sometimes additional paraprofessionals under the individual education programs for students, a couple for curriculum aides as well. And for the upcoming year, this is the only place in the budget that there's an additional position, as Dr. Riley said, for the in-school suspension at the middle school. So this is the only new position. As I said, we do hire additional pairs throughout the year based on student needs and IEPs. So those are still in there. Non-certified professionals, there is no real increase there, very small increase, little decrease. That's because in the past there's been one position that was funded at 100% from the board. That should be 50% board, 50% grant. That's what this reflects for the upcoming year. That's the decrease. There's no less staff in the upcoming year for this area. Added teaching stipends, added teaching stipends positions. That again is per the contract. Let me just move it over. That's just what's in the teacher's contract for extracurricular positions and new middle school stipends, and we've added some club positions at both elementary schools as well for the upcoming year. So that's what that reflects. Tutor salaries, you'll see a reduction in the tutor salaries. Let's see if we can go down a little bit. Because we've lowered the cost for tutors. One of the reasons is we have less tutors here in the annex for tutoring students from the high school and expelled students than we've had to provide in the past by having the annex here. So, in my opinion, we've been able to lower that. Looking at this year's costs to date for tutors and projecting them forward, we'll be able to make a reduction because of the annex. The OPEB, that's other post-employment benefits. That's what it stands for, that acronym. I could get into a great detail for that. What that is an actuarial study, and you have to do it under, it's not a new GASB regulation or what you call it, but what they do is take a look going out almost 30 years. They look at your employee census, look at your health benefits, and they try to project a liability going out 30 years. And so this is this year for the upcoming year. This is the first year that we received the number from the town before our budget was presented. So I was able to include it this year in the budget. Health insurance, as you can see, is right now we're projecting just over 4%, just under $200,000. This is the first go-around. with our health benefit consultants. Obviously, as we get deeper into the year, hopefully in the next couple of weeks, we'll have a revised estimate from them as well, and a revised estimate from our health benefit provider in addition. So this could change up or down. I don't know. Right now, the claims are looking pretty good for the first 6 months of the year, first 8 months of the year. So hopefully in a couple of weeks, we'll have a better idea how accurate these figures are. The only other, well, town pensions is going down. Again, this comes from an actuarial study, and these costs are given to me from the town of Stonington. And so in the upcoming year, their actuarial study shows we need less funds going to the town for the pension plan. And so that's what this reflects. FICA and Medicare is just based on wages. That's all that's based upon. We look at the upcoming wages, what wages apply to FICA, what wages apply to Medicare, and we take the appropriate percentage. I don't see any increase in workers' compensation for the upcoming year, looking at past audits from our workers' compensation company and taking into account any wage increase. So that's pretty stable. Same thing with unemployment. As you know, we haven't had a lot of layoffs or resignations in the district. We do have some. We do pay unemployment compensation sometimes when people leave for various causes, but we don't expect this to rise at all in the upcoming year. The course credit is just in the teacher's contract. We reimburse teachers up to the $33,200 for taking graduate courses for those who have already obtained a graduate course, a graduate degree. So this is over and above, and it's a percentage based on how many people apply for that course reimbursement. Student enrichment, professional development. Student enrichment is down a little bit. We had a little bit less from Dean's Mill School for student enrichment. Not a lot, just a little bit. That's the bulk of it. Professional development is up. As you can see, they're going to focus on RTI, response to intervention, in the upcoming year, and still staying with the skills under the literacy program and looking at continuing team teaching at the high school grade 10 and increasing tier 1 at the Stonington Middle School. So we've contracted with EastCon to do a few of those things for the upcoming year. We have them now in the schools, and I think they're doing a good job from everything that we hear from the teachers and the administration. Professional pupil services, athletic trainer, that's really the largest increase there really is for timers, announcers, crowd control, and those types of costs. Again, we have our usual increases for athletic trainers and pupil services, but nothing major in the upcoming year. Professional technical services, the largest increase here is within the maintenance budget. There are still increased costs for the technical service side of the HVAC equipment at the high school. Not the repair and maintenance, but somebody to come in and help us find what is going wrong with the system. So that's this part of it. And we've also contracted for building management systems for all the facilities in the district. And so we have one system that will be able to talk to every single school instead of having 2 or 3 separate systems. So we've contracted with a company to do that for us, to update those types of things and keep us abreast for us. Public utilities, pretty big decrease, 155.
Gary, could I have you pause just for 1 minute?
Yep.
It's 8:04, and I wanted to give the students an opportunity to have their papers signed if they would like to head on out. Not that they're not finding this totally interesting.
It's terrible getting all of this, too.
Did you get your form signed there, Mr. Morehouse?
You could probably pick. We'll catch Jack up.
As I said, public utilities is almost on $155,000. Two reasons, as we've said in the past couple of years, we have instituted some energy savings, LEDs. Peter and his staff and a couple of outside contractors have upgraded the middle school gymnasium. So we expect to save some good money there. And then looking at our new schools and taking into account other utility costs over the year, we believe the amount of consumption for KWHs is going to go down. And so we're keeping abreast of that as well. And we've been decreasing these costs for the last 2 or 3 years as we get better and better forecasting, as we get better and better energy improvements within the system. And again, as Dr. Riley had said before, that we've contracted with MCOR to come through and do an energy analysis for us, and they're in the process of doing that right now. So we might even have other types of energy savings, but we'll have to pay for them. The repairs and maintenance, it's just a slight increase in the maintenance department. Again, if I go back to the professional technical services, when I told you we need some technical services for the HVAC equipment, mostly at the high school, as we've reported to you, we replaced 4 units 2 years ago. We still have another 7, 8, 9, 10 units, but we still need to repair those to keep those up and going until we can fix those. Rentals, just a slight increase for the cost of copiers and office equipment. Regular transportation, mostly due to the increase in our contract. We're not adding any new runs or anything like that. It's really based on our contract, and we put some more money in for curriculum transportation during, not only during the summer, but throughout the year. So we've added a few dollars for the curriculum for those students. Special ed transportation, increase of just over 11,000. Again, it's an estimate of those students whose needs need to be transported outside of our schools and sites. We've purchased our final van last year, and so we will not be decreasing costs for special ed basically internally as we have in the past. So last year was our last year that we purchased a new van for that. And so you won't see a decrease in transportation costs for special ed students. But again, it's, in my opinion, a minimum increase of $11,000 because, as Dr. Riley said, we have 23 outside placements, and we do try to get the best prices we can from private contractors. Field trips, again, slight increase, again, due to the cost of the contract. And we do have money in for field trips at the elementary schools. We never really had a line item for that before at the elementary schools. We do in the upcoming year. Property, liability, insurance, really just going down a little bit. Again, we have 2 less buildings in the upcoming year. I did account for some of that in this current year's budget. We think there'll be a slight decrease in the upcoming year as well. Tuition increase, just under $213,000. Of that, we're projecting $200,000 of it due to special education tuition outside placement increases, and just a slight amount of money for increases in adult ed and magnet schools. But as Dr. Riley has said before, if we didn't have the annex, that might be up another $200,000. So that increase could have approached $400,000. Non-instructional supplies, just down, just a little bit. That's due to less administrative supplies in the schools that we need. So, slight decrease. Instructional Supplies decrease, largest one is in special education general supply account. That's where most of that decrease is coming from. Maintenance supplies, again, small increase, and most of that is at the regional maintenance level for supplies. Transportation fuel, again, a very slight increase. We feel what we have in the budget for a cost for the current year, I think will be reliable, but again, what's going on in the Middle East, we never know, but we felt pretty comfortable keeping the price per gallon and number of gallons fairly stable for the upcoming year. Overall, if you look at all the equipment lines, the first two equipment lines, it's basically no increase. And overall, as you can see, it's only a $4,500 increase for equipment. And dues and fees, very slight increase. Again, it's for conferences, for memberships that go up, and for the district tech dues, that's a little bit different, but that's for licensing. Again, that's only a $1,500 increase. So then if you go down to the revenues, we used to include these in special ed, but this current year we broke them out so people can see what the special ed excess cost grants, what we get back from the state for this. We expect the tuition portion to go up, just like you've seen. There's a $200,000 increase in tuition for special ed in the upcoming year. And we think that the state grant for transportation is going to go down a little bit. We don't project a large increase for that. And just for your knowledge, the excess cost grant, what happens is the special education department applies to the state for the cost, for the reimbursement for the grant. And in order to receive any reimbursement, you have to be 4.5 times your per pupil expenditures. So in the upcoming year, we have to show the state that we spent more than $83,000 on an individual basis, student by student, before we get $1 of reimbursement from the state. So that's how that grant works. Excuse me. And that's basically included with the excess costs transportation, special education transportation grant as well. The the gate receipts is just from the high school for athletics. That's all that's for. And so you see the increase of just over $1.3 million and a 3.48% increase overall. If you continue in your budget book, I'm not going to get into it, but as Dr. Riley said, it's very detailed, school by school, administration, curriculum, operations, techs. So again, that's where all the detailed backup comes from, and you can see that. And as Dr. Riley said, I think it worked well last year when the board asked questions of Dr. Riley, and we all sat down as a cabinet and as a leadership team and went over the questions and came up with answers for you. I'd like that format. So, you know, the more questions you want to send Dr. Riley is fine with us. So please feel free to do so. We'll answer them for you.
Thank you, Gary. You can tell that Gary. I need to thank Gary. I mean, he spent months on this, and the principals. It's everybody put a lot of time and effort into this. The other thing, in addition to just sending us questions, it's not just questions, but it's information. For instance, Jack, your question about the two assistant principals. If you need a rationale for something, or why are we thinking this or thinking that, anything like that, it's helpful for us to have a heads up so I kind of know what to respond and how to answer questions. The other thing, in the past, we've always offered, if you want to come in, bring your spreadsheet, bring your budget, and we can sit down and go over some other explanations, and I'll take notes and making sure the whole board knows what each board member is asking. And that's what we've tried to do here. So that's our presentation tonight. We can either take some questions tonight or in the next week or so.
I'd like to ask a question. So I know you've created some positions along the way, particularly at the elementary school, and are they listed individually in here, or when I say created positions, like I don't know the name, I don't know the title of these positions, but like they're like curriculum coordinators and that type of thing. how are they listed in
They'll either
here?
be in there, or
As a
they were
teacher,
listed
or-
in the narrative under the titles. You'll see those are the ones you're talking about.
Yeah,
I think.
yeah.
There's like, I think 7 or 8 there, and if you have a question, well, who is that, and any further clarification, just send that email. Be happy to
Okay.
show that.
all right.
You'll see that. That was on page something. Excuse me here. On page 7, the federally funded programs, the math interventionist elementary program
Yeah,
coordinator, those are
right,
the ones.
right, right.
So if you're not sure who that is or where they are located, that kind of thing,
Okay.
just let me know and we'll be happy to answer that.
Can I ask a more broad question about the budget process? Would this be an appropriate time? Okay. So, I just wonder, I had several Board of Finance members talk to me about communication between the Board of Ed and the Board of Finance, and I guess they get these monthly reports. I don't know what they're called, but sometimes they have questions, and they'd like to sit down more often with a representative from the school, not necessarily Dr. Riley, someone that he would like to represent the school and just answer questions. I'm sure this isn't the first time you've heard of this. I've heard about this. Can you just comment on that?
I can make a comment because that's something we've been talking about recently, and I have had discussions with Tim, who's the chair for the Board of Finance, and that's something we are working on to address, is whether it's a quarterly meeting or something like that directly, to have them ask, like meeting on like a one-to-one basis, and then they can bring some information back. Also having representatives on a rotating basis, perhaps at the Board of Finance meeting. But I know Farouk may be able to answer that a little bit more directly because he did attend the meeting last night. We have Lynn Young here. Thank you for coming. We did invite Board of Finance to attend, and then hopefully it made it a little bit more clear that the next 2 meetings will be a little bit more in detail in the questions and back and forth, and it's a process we're working towards improving even better for next year. We came in a little bit late to the game to do that, but certainly your statement is definitely agreed upon by both the Board of Finance and Board of Education, that we want to improve that communication and that back and forth. And I'm not sure, there was an attachment to one of, I think it's the monthly reports or the monthly finance report. Is that a new form for the transfers? It looked nice and clear to me. Just a different one? Okay. It looked like it was a little bit more about for what the Board of Finance had been asking for, where it had what it was, what line it was from, what line it was coming from, going to, and then why, which I know that was something that the Board of Finance was asking. So I meant to put that in my recognitions. I wanted to say thank you for doing that. And I was going to follow up to see if that met the needs of the Board of Finance. So, Jack, I don't know if that answered your question a little bit.
We'll see.
Okay, that
Okay,
sounds
all
good.
right.
That's fine. Farouk, did you have anything to add to that?
No.
Okay. I did have a question. You said that this would be part of that the budget itself would be on our website under the 4th State of the District. So, and does that mean all of these pages?
Yes.
So all of the pages will be on our website under the State of the District. So we'll have to make sure we get that out there for anybody who's asking for that.
Yeah, and we'd also talked about, before we present both the SIP and our budget to the Board of Finance, that we could have a pre-meeting to make sure that all of the format, the questions, whatever is set. So I don't want to come to the whole Board of Finance, and then, well, what about this? What about that? If we can answer things at that meeting or beforehand, so that's our hope.
I had sent a question to Tim, basically, let's do this, make sure we have the documents you want for the SIP, so it's laid out and the detail that you're looking for, so we can help clear that up beforehand, help that process go smoothly. And Lynn, thank you for coming tonight.
I have one budget question. I've just been thinking about this over the last couple months. Where are the attorney fees? Like, how are those covered?
They're under professional services. We could break those out. There was a question about what this whole FOI thing has cost.
Right.
And I know that, I think that's going to be, I think Elisa had that question. So if you have that kind of question, send it to us. We'll make sure we get it.
Under what? Sorry, under what?
Pro-
Okay,
Professional
thanks.
technical services.
Thank you.
If that could be broken out, that would be great. Thank you. It doesn't have to be broken out in the document itself, but just we would like that information broken apart so we have those numbers. Any other questions at this time? Certainly in between now and 2 weeks from now, the 23rd is the next meeting that relates to the budget. Please certainly relay those questions to Dr. Riley so they can help get some of those answers for us.
And can we start a thread so we're not repeating the same questions to you? So if there's like a way to start a thread of emails?
I could send an email and ask that we please provide Dr. Riley with any questions related to the budget, and then perhaps we could.
And if somebody doesn't want to follow the thread, that's fine. It's just helpful if we see everybody's questions.
Sometimes that helps lead to other questions or
Right.
dig a little bit deeper.
Right.
I've found sometimes that helps with that.
Well, perhaps we could, when you send me a question, send it to the whole board, or I
That-
can.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
easier.
that's
Send
the
it to the
idea.
That's
whole-
great.
That way everybody sees what's being asked.
Thank you.
Is there any other questions? Okay, so we'll put the budget aside. And the next item on the agenda is the Board of Education Title IX workshop. Thank you for staying through this long, lengthy, a little less interesting board meeting. Last meeting, we had decided that we would be able to start with the workshop. We had completed our interviews, were behind us for the OCA investigation, and Attorney Egan had been helpful actually in helping to guide us a little bit forward where we could get started. She also commented that this is a prevalent issue, unfortunately, across the state, perhaps across the nation, that we weren't alone in this very difficult, unpleasant situation that we're in at this time. So we were able to go forward with this workshop. We decided on the date of Monday, January 27th at 7 o'clock in this space would be a good time and spot for that. We will be working together with all our stakeholders, that's our families, faculty, students, past and present community members, to improve policies, procedures, and education relating to Title IX. I can't tell you how much Mr. Van Etten's comments were exactly what we're all thinking up here. These are issues and concerns of ours. Just because some of us may not want another private investigation doesn't mean that these aren't our concerns. These actually, Vernette, I'm sorry. Did I say Van Etten? I'm sorry. Because Mrs. Van Etten is the person who will be helping to orchestrate and lead this workshop. So I'm sorry, Van Etten and Vernette. I got the two names in my mind here. There are 5 components of this workshop. At this point, the format and the layout, there will be policies and procedures, processes, education for the community, and professional development for admin and staff, curriculum and programming, and relationships and trust. And I had questions I had developed and put forward. These are questions I've heard for the last 6 months from the community. These are questions I've heard from the board. So I've kind of laid these questions in, or hoping that these questions would then help make the format and the content of the fit in the outline that was started. And some of these questions lead to how do we improve the reporting system? How do we improve the interview? How do we, like Mr. Burnett said, how do we help these students be comfortable in reporting? How do we make it it's a climate issue? How do we make it that it's okay to report? It's okay to confide. It's okay to be the one to report for someone else and to help out. How do we do that? And one thing is to find out why. Why did people not report? And so hearing Mr. Burnett's comments are very helpful. How do we make sure students, parents know how to report? How do we make sure parents are aware if their child reports a concern or complaint? How do we maintain these reports? Is there a choice in how reports are made, interview process? Everybody's different. How they're comfortable is different. How do we do that? How do we improve the reporting and interview process? How have we done this over the last 6 months? How have we right away changed some of the things that we were doing in the past? How do we support our students past, present, and future? We have partnerships in education. Can we also have partnerships to provide support and education related to Title IX? Can our mental health professionals in the district establish presentations, speakers, networks, regional resources, presentations? You know, if this is a statewide issue or concern, can we do regional workshops and reach out to our community in that way? How do we do this? This is where we need all of our stakeholders coming together and working. This isn't something that we can slap together in a month or two. It's something we need to work and think about so we can help change our climate and the direction. How do we create high school climate in which we empower students to understand all forms of sexual harassment, education? How do we include stakeholders, partnerships with community agencies, mediation? How do we include all stakeholders, their ideas for improvement, and how do we continue to keep them involved ongoing? Current ideas I've received from the community, an exit survey from a class after an exam to help understand how that classroom was comfortable. Were they okay in that room? Improve reporting process so this doesn't happen to any other student. More education and clear guidelines on how and what to report. Another question was, can we offer internet resource to help parents recognize sexual harassment? So these are some topics that will be our launch pad for ongoing process. This isn't something that can be done overnight or in one step or in one stage, but we need the help of our community members. We need past students, present students, parents, teachers, administrators, health professionals. So that's our launch pad for our workshop on Monday, January 27th at 7 o'clock. Is there anything anyone at the table would like to add? And if you have other questions that you think should go into this pool, please email them to me or to Mrs. Van Etten, and we'll be happy to add that. And that's for the community members as well as board members.
I just want to say I regret I will not be there. I will be in South America. Salsa dancing, I hope.
Well, that's okay. We'll catch you up, and I'm sure there will be plenty other for you to be involved and move forward. But Jack, if you have something to add before then,
I will.
that would be
I'll
great.
yep.
That's perfect. Thank you.
Did we discuss who's facilitating the workshop?
Well, I did indirectly because I misspoke, and Mrs. Van Etten will be more of our moderator, our presenter, our coordinator, and we'll be able to ask questions. We're still working on an exact format so that everybody can kind of feel how do we incorporate our community members, how do we, and Mrs. Van Etten will do a presentation based on the questions and the format, the layout, and then we'll be able to chime in as we go through each section.
So is Safe Future, sorry, Allie, is Safe Futures involved in this piece coming up?
Not this piece directly. This
Okay.
is us, and then I think we envision it as us brainstorming, coming up with ideas. What do we want to see coming forward? What agencies or indirectly send this back to? This is, as a board, this is what we want to see. you as the administration, how do you do that?
I want to put it out there that I would have a problem right now with Safe Futures being involved in anything. One sec. Given the editorial in the day, and I just want to put it out there because I know that you brought it up and I know they're a reputable organization, but that was not acceptable for future work.
May
I think
comment
you're
that
speaking about the letter.
I had that editorial was mislabeled, I guess it is, that the person that wrote that was not related at all with Safe Futures, even though it was stated that they were. And
She'd actually left 2 years before.
The head of Safe Futures called me, we went back and forth today. We weren't able to make contact, but we're going to, I think the call, I know the call was just to say that that wasn't us, it wasn't what Safe Futures believes or anything to do with them. So.
Thanks.
We were very concerned about that, and Kathy was really physically sick because she had already begun to reach out to Stonington High, and then she felt that that would disrupt the kind effort. So she was disturbed. There was nothing that we could do to rearrange it, but it's good to begin to spread that out right now.
Thanks, Heidi.
Thank you for helping to clarify, Heidi.
I have a question.
You bet, Allie.
You said, just to clarify, all students would be welcome at this?
This is an open meeting, so yes,
Okay,
all
definitely.
students are welcome, past, present, future, all community members. It's an open meeting. It's not a closed session, and we'll figure out how to get people's comments and input as we're going along. We just haven't gotten to that point yet.
Okay.
But yes, Allie, and if you have suggestions how we can do that and how we can reach out, I'd appreciate that.
Definitely. I'll bring it up at the next student government
Oh, great.
executive meeting. Yeah.
Thank you.
Awesome. Yeah.
I appreciate that.
And Alexa, I think we wanted to emphasize that we are going to include graduates as well in our concern with connecting them with proper professionals who deal with the current cultural changes. So
I think students will help significantly with helping us address climate, culture, and how to provide support. Any other comments at this immediate time? Certainly, please, as I said, add your comments or suggestions to myself, Mrs. Van Etten, Mrs. Butler, Dr. Riley, and then we can continue to formulate this workshop so it's helpful for everybody. Next item on the agenda, monthly reports. Any comments? I did want to say I saw Becky's picture of a meal that they prepared, homemade soup, black bean brownies, and it looked really good. So thank you to the kitchen staff for their homemade lunch. Committee reports. Any comments on committee reports? Anything to bring forward? I would like to add that from the building committee aspect, the PCB testing was completed, and West Vine and Dean's Mill, and results are fine, and a report will follow. So we have how many more testing to go through? 2 more. Okay, and when do those happen, Peter? This summer, okay. And then 1 more next winter? Okay. Are there any comments from citizens relative to board action on this agenda? Items for future agendas. We have an update on the annex and technology report. Are there any other items to add?
Do we have a calendar yet for the budget presentations from? I haven't seen. Okay, just wondering, so we could calendar.
Thank you. Okay. All right. Do you know if there's particular nights or anything? Nothing yet? Okay. All right. I won't ask anymore. It's hard to get this room? Okay. Okay. All right. Okay. Thank you. Okay, any board comments or concerns?
I'll make a few comments. Appreciate Candace's comments, by the way. And Candace, I'm so sorry to hear about your diagnosis. It's not easy dealing with these issues, and we're all just doing our best. I did see this week on the news, there was a woman, this is very circuitous, and I haven't written this down, so please bear with me. There was a woman, she was a reporter on a bridge at the start of a race, and it went viral, so maybe you saw it. She was reporting, and this runner comes along and taps her on the rear end, and the look on her face was, you know, she was humiliated. She will live with that for the rest of her life. Now, she was probably 25, 30 years old. She wasn't a student. She wasn't a teenager. He was charged with sexual battery. It's serious. This is serious stuff. And you know, Candace talks about doing what's right for the students, and I, in the bottom of my heart, believe that she is doing what she thinks is right for the students, but so am I. And that's why I've taken this position. And there seems to be a big disconnect between what the administration has reported to us and what we've read in the paper. And that's why we need a private investigation, because we need to know what really happened. It's our duty as citizens, as board members, to know when you look at that woman's face. I encourage you to watch the video. If that happened over and over again for a decade or more, we need to know. We need to know for those students. And for me, it's not about the administration, although I realize that Candace has made comments along the way that, you know, what would the school be like without a Mark or a Margot? And it would be terrible. That wouldn't be what's best for the students. They are great administrators, and that has not even been crossed my mind that this is completely separate. I'm focused on those kids that were affected, negatively impacted. They need to know that we, by our actions, are honoring them. And honoring them is doing an investigation which justifies and explicitly says what happened. Not justifies, but explicitly documents what happened. So I would ask my fellow board members who are not on, who do not share my point of view, to just, you know, we might do an investigation and find out that the administration did everything just like they were supposed to do it. And that's great. I honestly hope that's the case. But it's important that we know. And that's all I'm going to say. So, thank you.
I'd like to say I've considered this for the past few meetings that I've been honored to sit up here, and I've strongly considered my position, and I'd like to say we keep talking about what's best for the students, but as a student, I believe that what's best going forward is conducting a private investigation. I strongly believe that there's a lot to be uncovered, especially within the student body, and I think that there's opinions of students that are going unheard that would be very pertinent to what's coming out in the news. So I'd just like to say I, as student government president, do endorse a private investigation.
Any other comments or concerns? I will remind you that we do have a meeting on next, I'm sorry, Thursday. It is next Thursday, the 16th, with Nick Caruso from CABE, and it will be, I think we'd say it would be in this room because room 103 would be a little too small. Can I have a motion to adjourn? A second? All in favor? Aye. Thank you, everybody, for your comments.